I kind of got a small commission for that, but yeah.
So that's
also
humble beginnings.
Yeah. You started with diamonds.
You get to be your own boss, work at your own pace, call the shots, and if you have a bad day, you have nobody but yourself to crib about. So that's great.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk, the special design edition. In this edition, we take you through the creative journeys of architects, interior designers, product designers, and jewelry designers. So, let's talk. Today we have with us two young jewelry designers and entrepreneurs. Advaita Mathur is a jewelry designer and the owner of Studio Metallurgy. And Somil Sheth, who's an entrepreneur and a lots more. Let's talk. If you had three words to describe yourself, what would it be? We start with the lady.
I'd hopefully be described as somebody who's creative, resourceful, and can get stuff done.
I like the get stuff done thing. What about you?
So, well, for me, to begin with, if I had to describe myself into three words, I would say I'm a sportsman. I really like playing a lot of sports. I am dedicated to my work. I am a person who is really dedicated to work, as well as I am really loyal as well.
Right. So, how would your mother describe you?
Somebody who doesn't exactly listen to instructions, very strong-headed, and hopefully again as somebody who thinks out of the box.
I like that. What about you?
Well, my mother, to describe me, she wouldn't ever really expect a lot me being serious, but she saw the transition in me that changed drastically because
Right.
I was really a bright student, but
Lazy.
I was really lazy. To be honest, I was really lazy, and I really did not. I'm not an academic person. That's why I used to be more focused on sports. But my mom, she had to describe me. She would just be like, "This guy is just naughty, wants to just fool around, and
lazy.
yeah, pretty much."
Let's talk about humble beginnings now. What was the first job that you ever got paid for?
I fortunately always had a paid job. I never had to intern pro bono.
Wow.
So I started with Tarun Tailyani, and he was very kind enough to offer a beginner's salary that was a good remuneration
As a fashion designer.
as a fashion designer.
What about you?
For me, my first job was the first job that I got paid for was actually when I was in the 10th grade. And my family business is jewelry designing, and I'm into that as well. But my first job was when I was in 10th grade. I actually moved around with my father's jewelry and went to his friend's office to go sell a couple of diamonds to them. And that's
Wow.
and I kind of got a small commission for that, but yeah.
So some humble beginnings.
Yeah. You started with diamonds.
No, but yeah, it was.
That's great. So, who have been your biggest influencers and role models?
I suppose most of the time your parents are your initial role models because the kind of observation and contact you have with them, they always set the bar. But going on into the professional world, I again was very fortunate to work with somebody like Tarun, who really did set the precedent for ethical working and a very principled man.
Right. What about you?
Same. So my first initial beginning, I was looking forward and up to my father for his business sense and everything. So I used to look up to my father a lot, but at the earlier stage, of course. But the moment I started growing up and started going further in to my life, I kind of started looking up more towards like some people who were like really different, like Giorgio Armani. Like if you go to see him, he maybe owning like a very international brand, like everyone knows Giorgio Armani and Armani as well. But he is quite different because in any interview he goes to or whatever he does, he always wears like a white shirt, a black suit, and very simple. And
That's a signature style.
it is of him.
What's the most memorable thing that you've ever done?
Wow. When you ask that kind of a question, there's a lot of memorable things I have done, but
Pick your favorite.
my favorite memorable thing I've ever done is actually helping out in the like a lot of poor people. I kind of love charity. So the most memorable experience I had was when out of my first money that I earned, I kind of donated that into charity. So that's always gonna stick with me. So
Okay, that's a noble cause.
I suppose it out of the many memorable things. As again, I think all of us, we love doing things with our first salaries. Would be
Yeah.
picking really expensive watches for my parents. So,
Wow,
yeah.
yeah, that's a good one. How did you get started on the path that led you to where you are today?
Accidentally, I had just quit my job, won incubator program, gotten poached by a startup for another job, which didn't work out. In 2 months, I was back home without a job and trying to figure if I wanted to do another job. And so Studio Metallurgy sort of started with a Facebook page in an evening for jewelry, which I owned. And I think I had a fair amount of good luck because it just got orders and got working on it. And that was about it. It was very accidental. It was meant to be a stopgap arrangement before I found another job, and that
Yeah.
other job just never came about.
So this was what you stuck through. What about you?
So for me, like I said before, I used to go with my father in every summer holiday as well. I used to go to his friends' offices and do internship as well. But for me, after I did internships, I wasn't really an office person. So I told my dad, like, listen, Dad, I'm sorry, but I hate sitting in a closed office for 9 hours. I like something moving around, like to do something like physically, not just sitting in one place and getting stuff done. But then he told me wisely, like, why don't you think about something different that fits your your main aspect? So I then started exploring my options, and then he told me I have a dream as well with me that wants to do something different. I want to chill my holiday house with my wife, and I want to just design houses because he's always passionate about it. So he kind of told me, why don't you get into this field and try out.
So let's talk about life as you know it now. What is the best part of the job that you do?
You get to be your own boss, work at your own pace, call the shots, and if you have a bad day, you have nobody but yourself to crib about. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's well said, but I would actually agree with her as well, because for me also the best part about my job is that it gives me flexibility to move around and not sit in one place, and also like going around and exploring new things.
What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
The favorite thing for me to do is actually like extreme sports is something that I really like doing, and traveling. So these two are something that I would
Yeah,
do.
pretty cool. What about you?
Well, I don't know. In my experience, I've realized that ever since I've started doing what I like, there is never a moment where you're not doing anything. So when I may not be physically be on the floor getting something done, I'm probably researching for something that I'd like to do next.
Right. So you don't take creative breaks and
You know,
take off.
the thing is, it's really relaxing to stay creative as well. It's not for you to sit down and just research, say, a new technique or stumble upon something. That's actually leisure, because all you're doing is either browsing through information, but it's something that you're passionate about. So it's really it's an odd answer. Perhaps a lot of people have. It's a question that I get asked often.
Yeah.
But honestly, there isn't really a downtime wherein you're not doing something. It's
Right.
just relaxing to just continue exploring more.
So, like, where do you get your best work done? Like, where are you most productive and creative?
It could be on the throne in the morning or in my auto ride late in the day. No answer to that.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. What about you?
I actually get my work done when I'm actually a part of nature. So
Right.
for me, when I'm a part of nature, for example, my house is a beautiful view which overlooks the ocean. So I can actually sit at any point in day. So for me, inspiration comes at any point in time. So I closely work towards nature.
Right. And what drives you on the bad days, which we all keep facing every other day?
For me, if I have a bad day, it's mainly I actually remove my frustration and everything on sports. So
So you go hit the gym or go run?
no,
or
gym is something I'm against. I don't really go to the gym. You can
it's
see.
not a sport.
Yeah, it is. But for me, it's something. For example, the smallest thing. In my high school, I used to get frustrated and angry and have a bad day about something. I used to go out on the field and kick the football into the
Right.
goal. No matter if it doesn't go into the goal, it's still removing my frustration and my bad day onto the ball instead of removing it on
you
someone.
like kicking things. I'm just fooling around with you. What is your greatest skill?
Usually to faff my way through situations.
Okay. Yeah, that's a superpower.
For me, I like figuring and dealing out with the certain situations. I like finding a way to get out of situations where it's really difficult for people to.
So what is that one message you would like to give out to people who are wanting to start out on their own?
I think the only time you should do something on your own is when you're very sure that when it isn't going to be all happy and successful, you will still want to see it through. Because if it is something that will break your will in the first 3 failures or 4 failures or 5 failures, then it's not meant for you, because it will actually take everything that you hold dear to yourself at stake. You may be making a lot of money, and you start something and you may just lose that money. You may like to go on a holiday, and you may not have that money then to actually pay for that holiday. So there will be sacrifice, and if you believe that you can sort of get on with it, please go for it. But if you think you're just going to be inspired because you heard someone talk about the rags to riches story, stick to your job. It's not for you. It's really not a happy place to be in. There are peaks, but they are far in between. Except when you're really passionate, those peaks sort of pull you through the bad days.
Right. It's more like raising a child. I mean, you have to take ownership even if you don't like it. So we know that you're an entrepreneur. So tell us a little about that journey and how it began.
Like I said, right after I got done with my master's, I joined my brother and my father into that business. And I got lucky because it's a family business, and I got an opportunity to design their cafe as well.
Right.
So my first solo project, if you go to see, is actually the tea cafe of ours, which is in Bandra.
Let's get to the fun part. This is the game I like to call If Not This, Then That. And it's my own version of rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you one question each, and I want you to answer quickly. If you could be anyone other than yourself, who would you like to be?
My sister, she has a classic job, works in EY, makes a ton of money and gives me stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
That's a dream come true. What about you? If you didn't know how old you actually are, then what age would you say you are?
Oh, about 30.
30. You like to look older?
That's
Now
when
that
you
I
have
know
your
how
life on
old you
track.
are.
I'm 29, not really.
Yeah, not really. I'm 30, so yeah, just figuring things out. If you were not living in this time period, what time period would you be living in?
I actually really like living in this time period. I think it's ready for a bunch of things that weren't there before. And also it's the only time period that I can bring the retro back and have it accepted.
Oh yeah, or you could go back and live the retro life.
Nobody values the retro back in the retro days. So,
if you were not working, then what would it be?
Oh, extreme sports. 100%.
If you were not human, then what would you like to be?
probably a retriever. They get all the love in the world, they do nothing in life.
If you were not currently living in India, then where would you like to be?
Maldives.
Oh yeah, you can do your scuba thing in there.
Nature, water, everything I want.
On point. Thank you so much. You guys have been fabulous. Let's talk about what's next. Was it one thing that you would like to learn or try? Just any new thing that you would want to explore?
I'd probably want to try, it's actually a very specific jewelry technique. Maybe you can help me with it. I really need to find a place to do electroforming.
Wow.
For anybody who's seeing this, they need to go and research electroforming. It's a beautiful technique in jewelry.
Right.
Yeah.
What's one thing you would like people to remember you about at the end of your life?
So for now, I'm 23 years old only, but I haven't really had a chance to think about what people would think about me when I don't exist in the world anymore. But I would at least appreciate, like, I was a good person and I was kind and I did things right. Not fool anyone or not take advantage of anyone.
So probably a righteous life. So what would be a dream project for you?
I hope I stumble upon somebody someday who happens to have a house in New York, India, and a couple of other places, wherein I get to do the entire house up and just use the influence that all of these very iconic cities have across the board. I think that would make for a lovely project for myself, I mean, if I ever make that amount of money, I wish I can buy it. But I really don't think real estate is going to allow me to do that. But it would be a lovely project to take bits and pieces across the world and truly make a global home.
My dream would actually be after I establish myself and make enough money to have a really nice lifestyle with my future wife. It would actually be just living on an island.
I'm designing your house, clearly.
Yeah.
You're the guy. You're the person. You're the person.
Don't worry.
Who's gonna have
You can
this
tell
house
me.
from
You can help me with the designing part as well. It's not a problem. It's just something that, because if you go to see, like you said, real estate. If you really go to see, a lot of different islands, small islands are really cheap to buy.
Yeah,
So at the end of the day, when I make enough money, I would want to just relax on an island with my future wife.
As this show is called Let's Talk, who would you like to have a Let's Talk session with?
Actually, I'm pretty flexible in that. Any and everybody who has made it through a circumstance that you would ideally not. A lot of us are very privileged. I am too. I mean, I may not have started off with a huge amount of investment, but I had the luxury and the privilege of taking a risk and have a home to go back to because our parents have that.
True.
But anybody from, say, the owner of Paytm, who literally struggled through up until he was able to establish himself, to, say, the person who owns and runs Oyo Rooms. These are all people who've actually put in their grit and effort and have pulled it through a circumstance that ideally would not have allowed you to achieve something.
Right.
Would be really interesting because they all have journeys, but at the bottom of it all, it's always grit.
Right.
And to understand and talk about grit, I think is a really nuanced topic, and it would be lovely to interact with people.
True. What about you?
Okay, the person I would really want to have a talk with is actually the owner of Subway, because their lifestyle actually started in college. What they actually ended up doing is they used to sell subs to the college students, and when they really knew that this is the point, this is exactly what's going to really work, they made it a brand. And after they made it a brand, in today's world, Subway has a lot more stores than Starbucks.
What is that one subject that you feel people should be talking about more and more?
Well, for me, I think sustainability. I think it's become a very trendy word without understanding the concept of sustainability. And I say that because just recently somebody had asked me what's so sustainable about my brand. I work a lot with metals, and people have this notion of looking at wood to be more sustainable versus metal, which is not true. And the reason it's not true is that while it may take 20 years for a tree to grow and you chop it in 5 minutes, metal is infinitely more recyclable. So the question that I wish people would actually look at is not sustainability, because that can never tie in with consumerism. You can never have a sustainability market where you're actually promoting consumerism, but you can have sustainable practices. And the reason wood is now seen as more sustainable than metal is simply because it's a more sustainable, greener practice as opposed to, say, metal. So yeah, for me, it's like reevaluate and rethink. Just because you have gone out and purchased 100 products from brands that are sustainable, you've defeated the purpose of sustainability, which is slower consumption and greener practices by promoting consumerism.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I have a little something for you all. Our location partner has been gracious enough to give you a day access card. I know you don't belong to Bombay, but whenever you're traveling, you can work out of this space, and you can always use the facilities whenever you are here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. It was great having you. Thank you for joining us today. The show is being powered by Studio Metallurgy, who always believes in supporting talent. I would like to thank the AVE, where I'm a member, for this beautiful location, and also a huge thanks to Indifolo for co-curating the season with me.